$1 billion. That's the conservative estimate of what Cleopatra's lost treasure would be worth today. But here's what they don't tell you. It's not lost because it was stolen. It's not lost because it was spent. It's lost because it's protected by death traps so sophisticated, so brutally effective. Vault, Cleopatra's billion-dollar treasure, and the ancient security system that's been killing people for over 2,000 years. August 30 BC, Octavian's forces storm Alexandria. The Roman general has one objective beyond defeating Cleopatra: seize the legendary wealth of the Ptolemies. We're talking about 300 years of accumulated treasure: gold from Nubia, emeralds from the Red Sea, pearls from the Indian Ocean, the famous collection of giant gemstones that could ransom entire kingdoms, the crown jewels of the pharaohs going back to Alexander the Great himself. Ancient sources describe treasure rooms so vast that a man could walk for an hour and still not reach the walls. Wealth that made Rome look poor by comparison. Octavian expected to find this treasure in the royal palace. He had detailed intelligence. He knew where the treasury was supposed to be. His men smashed through doors, searched every chamber, interrogated every servant they could find. And you know what they discovered? Almost nothing. Some gold coins, a few ceremonial pieces, trinkets, the kind of wealth you'd expect from a minor provincial governor, not the richest queen in the world. The main treasury, the real treasure, the accumulated wealth of an empire that had dominated the Mediterranean for 3 centuries, had completely vanished. Octavian was furious. He tortured Cleopatra's advisors, executed her treasurer, tore apart the palace looking for secret chambers. Nothing. He searched the temples, the libraries, the royal tombs. He even drained sections of the harbor, thinking maybe the treasure had been loaded onto ships. Still nothing. It was as if the wealth of Egypt had been swallowed by the earth itself. And here's the thing that should terrify you. Octavian wasn't stupid. He had the resources of Rome behind him: professional engineers, experienced tomb raiders, thousands of soldiers. If he couldn't find it with unlimited time and unlimited resources, what chance does anyone else have? But Octavian did find something. Evidence. Not the treasure itself, but proof that it had been deliberately hidden in the final days before Alexandria fell. Ancient sources mention a secret construction project that Cleopatra ordered in the last year of her life. She diverted her best engineers, the master builders from the Library of Alexandria, the same men who had designed the lighthouse and maintained the great machines of the city. She ordered them to create something.
And whatever they built, it required massive amounts of labor, complete secrecy, and, according to one fragmentary account, cost the lives of everyone involved in its construction. The workers were executed, the engineers disappeared, the architects were never seen again. Cleopatra made absolutely certain that no one who knew where the treasure was hidden would survive to tell Octavian. Now here's where history meets hypothesis. What did those engineers build? Based on fragmentary evidence, archaeological analysis of similar Egyptian engineering projects, and recent discoveries about the sophistication of ancient technology, we can reconstruct what the Forbidden Vault probably looks like. And it's terrifying. First, location. The treasure isn't in a pyramid. Too obvious. It's not in the palace. Too accessible. The most likely location, based on geological surveys and analysis of ancient construction patterns, is deep beneath the Nile River itself. Ancient Egyptian engineers were masters of hydraulic engineering. They could create chambers below the water table using a technique called caisson construction. You build a watertight shaft, excavate downward, then seal the chamber using massive stone plugs and sophisticated drainage systems. If you do it right, the chamber stays dry even though it's below the river. And if anyone tries to break in without knowing the proper sequence of seals to release, the entire chamber floods in seconds. Everyone inside drowns. The treasure is protected by millions of gallons of water. But that's just the first layer of defense. The entrance to this vault, assuming you could even find it, would be protected by what ancient sources called the scales of Anubis. This was a counterweight system so precisely balanced that the slightest deviation in pressure would trigger a collapse. Imagine a corridor where the floor is actually a massive platform suspended on fulcrums. It's perfectly balanced to hold the weight of one person. maybe 2, walking very slowly and carefully. But if you run, if you carry too much weight, if you try to remove anything from the chamber, the balance shifts. Massive stone blocks, each weighing several tons, drop from the ceiling. Not quickly, slowly, inevitably, crushing everything beneath them. You'd watch your death descending, unable to stop it, unable to escape, because the corridor behind you would already be sealed by falling stones. Then there's the chemical defense system, and this is where ancient Egyptian chemistry gets really dark. The priests of Egypt had access to compounds that wouldn't be rediscovered in Europe for over 1,000 years. They could create acids strong enough to dissolve flesh. They could synthesize gases that would burn your lungs and blind you within seconds. Archaeological evidence from similar high-security tombs shows sealed ceramic vessels containing phosphorus compounds, sulfur-based mixtures, and concentrated natron solutions.
If these vessels break or are triggered by a tripwire or pressure plate, they mix. The chemical reaction produces toxic gas that fills the chamber in less than a minute. You wouldn't even realize you were dying until you started coughing blood. Some accounts mention something even worse. The Greeks called it automatic fire, a substance that burned on contact with air and couldn't be extinguished with water. We know the Byzantines later used something similar called Greek fire, but evidence suggests the Egyptians had it first. Imagine a chamber where the walls are coated with this substance, dormant and safe as long as it's sealed. But break the seal, let in oxygen, and the entire room becomes an inferno, a fire trap that would incinerate anyone inside and render the treasure inaccessible, even if you somehow survived. But perhaps the most psychologically devastating trap would be the maze itself. Ancient Egyptian engineers understood that the deadliest trap isn't necessarily the most violent. It's the one that confuses you, disorients you, makes you use up your resources wandering in circles until you collapse from exhaustion or thirst. The vault complex likely consists of dozens of identical corridors, false chambers, deliberate dead ends. And here's the truly evil part. They would have been designed to look like progress. Each chamber would contain a small amount of gold, enough to make you think you're getting closer, enough to keep you going. But it's bait. Every time you take a piece of gold from these false chambers, you're removing counterweights, triggering pressure plates, activating sequential locks that seal exits behind you. By the time you realize you're lost, you've already locked yourself into a death maze with no way out. Now you might be thinking, surely someone over the past 2,000 years has found this vault. Surely some ambitious treasure hunter or archaeological expedition has located the entrance. And you'd be right. There are accounts, fragmentary references in medieval Arabic texts, stories from the early Islamic period about men who claim to have found Cleopatra's gold beneath Alexandria. But here's the disturbing pattern. Every single one of these accounts ends the same way. The treasure hunters disappeared, or they were found dead under mysterious circumstances, or they went mad and refused to speak about what they'd seen. There's a medieval manuscript that mentions a group of 20 men who claim to have found the entrance to the vault in 1172 AD. They entered with torches, ropes, and enough supplies for a week. Only one came back, and he died 3 days later after rambling incoherently about walking corpses and rooms full of gold that you couldn't touch. His body showed signs of chemical burns and some kind of respiratory failure, consistent with poison gas exposure. In 1798, during Napoleon's expedition to Egypt, a French engineer named Claude Bertrand claimed he'd discovered ancient building plans that referenced a chamber complex beneath the Nile in Alexandria. He organized a small expedition. They were never seen again. Napoleon's official report says they deserted, but there's an unofficial letter from one of Napoleon's generals that suggests they found something, entered something, and whatever happened down there was so disturbing that Napoleon ordered the site sealed and all records destroyed. The letter ends with a chilling sentence: "Some doors should remain closed. Some treasures should remain lost." Even modern archaeology has been affected by this curse. In 1961, an Egyptian-American joint expedition was conducting sonar surveys of the harbor floor near the ancient royal quarter. They detected massive rectangular anomalies deep in the sediment.
structures that didn't match any known building in ancient Alexandria. They were preparing to excavate when 3 members of the team died in what was officially called a diving accident. The expedition was immediately shut down. The Egyptian government classified the sonar data, and the lead archaeologist, a respected professor from the University of Chicago, refused to ever speak about the project again. When pressed by journalists, he would only say that some discoveries are too dangerous to pursue. So, where is the vault today? The honest answer is nobody knows for certain, but there are clues. The most promising lead comes from analyzing Cleopatra's final movements in the days before her death. She made multiple trips to a location outside Alexandria, near Lake Marriott. Ancient sources mention she was supervising something, inspecting some kind of construction or installation. Modern satellite imaging of that area shows underground anomalies, chambers and tunnels that predate the Roman period. And here's what's really interesting. The Egyptian government has declared that entire section a military zone, completely off-limits to civilians. No archaeological permits, no surveys, no questions. Why would they restrict access to what appears to be ancient ruins unless they know something we don't? There's another possibility that's even more tantalizing. Some researchers believe the vault isn't a single location, but a network. Multiple chambers connected by tunnels, each containing a portion of the treasure, each protected by its own security system. And to access the main chamber, you'd need to navigate through all of them in the correct sequence. Get the sequence wrong, trigger the wrong trap, and the entire system seals itself permanently. It's the ultimate failsafe. Even if someone discovers one chamber, even if they survive its traps, they still can't access the main treasure without the key. And the key is information. A map, a sequence, a code, something that Cleopatra took to her grave. Some legends mention an object.
The Seal of Isis, they called it. Supposedly a medallion or stone carved with the complete map of the vault system, marked with the safe paths, the correct sequences, the chambers where the real treasure is located versus the deadly decoys. Cleopatra allegedly wore this seal until the moment of her death. And then it vanished. Some say she swallowed it. Others claim she had it buried in a separate location, ensuring that even if someone found the vault, they'd never find the key. And without the key, the vault is just an elaborate tomb, a death trap with gold at the center that no one can reach. Think about what this means. Somewhere beneath Egypt, possibly within a few miles of where people walk every day, there's a chamber containing enough wealth to reshape economies. Gold, jewels, artifacts of incalculable historical value. The crown of the Ptolemies, the personal treasures of Alexander the Great that Cleopatra inherited, possibly even the lost texts from the Library of Alexandria that she might have hidden along with the gold. Knowledge and wealth together, sealed in darkness, guarded by mechanisms that still function after 2 millennia. And here's the most chilling thought. Those traps were designed by the greatest engineers of the ancient world, men who built the lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the 7 wonders. Men who understood mathematics, physics, chemistry, and hydraulics at a level that wouldn't be matched in Europe for over 1,000 years. They had years to work on this project, unlimited resources, and one singular purpose: create a vault that would be absolutely impregnable, not difficult to breach, not just well protected, literally impossible to enter without the proper knowledge. Because Cleopatra didn't want to keep Romans out. She wanted to erase her wealth from existence rather than let her enemies claim it. The traps weren't meant to protect the treasure. They were meant to destroy anyone who tried to take it. And if that meant the treasure itself became inaccessible forever, so be it. Better lost than Roman. The technology to build something like this existed in ancient Egypt. We know this because we found similar systems, albeit simpler ones, in high-status tombs. The tomb of Seti I has a chamber that fills with sand from hidden reservoirs if you disturb the wrong stone. The underground complex at Saqqara has corridors that collapse if weight is distributed incorrectly. These were just individual tombs, protecting single bodies. Imagine what could be designed for the entire wealth of a kingdom, with years of planning, and the best engineers alive working on it. Modern technology might be able to defeat these traps. Ground-penetrating radar to map the chambers, robotic drones to explore without risking human lives, chemical sensors to detect toxic gases, computer modeling to analyze the mechanical systems. But you need permission from the Egyptian government. You'd need millions in funding.
You'd need a team of world-class engineers and archaeologists, and you'd need to be willing to bet your career, your reputation, and possibly your life on a treasure that might not even exist. Because that's the other possibility that no one wants to admit. Maybe the treasure never existed. Maybe Cleopatra spent everything in her final war against Octavian. Maybe the stories of vast hidden wealth are just propaganda, a myth designed to keep Octavian looking for something that wasn't there, wasting resources and time, while Egypt's real treasures were smuggled out piece by piece. But the evidence suggests otherwise. The Roman sources are too consistent. Octavian was too furious. The systematic destruction of everyone who might have known about the treasure's location is too thorough. You don't kill that many people to protect a myth. You don't create that level of secrecy for something that doesn't exist. The treasure was real. The vault is real. And the traps that protect it have been successfully killing people for over 2,000 years. So here's the question that should keep you awake tonight. If you had the map, if you had the seal of Isis, if you knew for certain that you could locate the entrance to the forbidden vault, would you go? Would you risk drowning in a flooded chamber? Would you risk being crushed by tons of stone? Would you risk poison gas burning your lungs? Would you risk navigating a maze designed to confuse and kill you? All for the chance, just the chance, at claiming the greatest treasure in human history? Because someone is going to try. Sooner or later, technology will advance enough, or someone will discover the key, or the Egyptian government will change its policies. And when that happens, when someone finally breaches the forbidden vault, we'll discover if Cleopatra's final revenge is still waiting in the darkness, still ready, still deadly, the serpent of the Nile protecting her gold for eternity. And maybe, just maybe, we'll learn that some treasures are lost for a reason. Some vaults should stay forbidden. Some deaths are warnings from the past, telling us that certain prices are too high to pay, even for all the gold in Egypt. The forbidden vault is out there, waiting, watching, killing anyone foolish enough to seek it without understanding that Cleopatra's greatest treasure wasn't gold. It was ensuring that her enemies would never, ever claim what was hers. And 2,000 years later, she's still winning.